One of the most significant climate change predictions expected to impact the Caribbean is related to natural disasters. Caribbean people and governments have been cautioned to brace for stronger and more intense storms and hurricanes. And already, the region experienced some of the deadliest and most costly hurricanes between 2000 and 2010. Many islands in the OECS are known for their mountainous terrain, making them vulnerable to landslides. This vulnerability can also extend to forest areas, which contain many natural springs and other watercourses. But with climate change, we are at greater risk of losing forest cover, exposing us to biodiversity loss, water shortages, and land degradation. In 2010, Hurricane Thomas appears to have bruised almost every mountain ridge on the island of St. Lucia. According to a UNECLAC damage and loss assessment for St. Lucia following the passage of Hurricane Thomas, the mass movement of soils during and after the passage of the hurricane caused loss and damage to 40 miles of forest roads and trails, and damage to 1,512 acres of natural forests. St. Vincent too was affected by Hurricane Thomas in 2010, and today the many exposed slopes, including those used for farming, are defenseless to the impacts of climate change. Landslides are now a possibility for every heavy rainfall event, and forestry officers are worried about the safety of hillside communities. Lands cannot be allowed to remain barren or unstable in this era of climate change.
Which basically meant going into those landslides and to be able to put in the various bioengineering techniques, tree planting and reforestation measures that would ensure that there is a quick vegetative cover of those slides. The importance of restoring these landslides to us is so vital because we need to ensure that we build resilience in the forest reserve. We cannot control hurricanes. We cannot tell you when a hurricane is going to affect us, but we need to build that resilience, that forest resilience, so that the forest can withstand these, unforeseen events.
Exposed lands, including landslides, are easily eroded by heavy rains. Remaining topsoil gets washed into rivers and into open seas, clogging water intakes and causing damage to coral reefs. As a mitigating measure, governments have had to build check dams.
And it's basically a barrier that we construct with either wood or stones. And it's basically to trap or to reduce the speed of water so that we can control the level of sedimentation that actually leaves the slope into our rivers.
The aim of the restoration program basically is to provide vegetative cover, which will act as a means of reducing the rate of erosion. Because once you have exposed soil, once you have an exposed area, definitely you will have erosion in one way or the other.
The greening of the islands is needed for economic development, but more critically for maintaining forests, for maintaining the habitats of our wildlife species, and for the protection of water sources. Quick-growing glory cedar, fruit trees and grasses with fibrous roots are some of the choices being used for reforesting.
We have to give them a little boost with fertilizer, and we find that the rate of growth speeds up. And once these things are established, once they've taken off, then they're established, then they grow well.
This is even more critical in countries that promote an ecotourism experience to potential visitors. And support from private landowners is critical for any reforestation plan to succeed.
Unless you can get buy-in by your constituents, it's not going to happen. You see, because if the idea of a hotel to your people is a high rise, 200 rooms, 10 acres of cleared land, then you're not going to sell ecotourism.
In some OECS countries like St. Lucia, the amount of land designated as forest reserves is below 30% of landmass. A reduction in that percentage will have major consequences for water security, food production, and the general quality of life. We all need to encourage greening by initiating efforts to replant along riverbanks, on steep slopes, and along coastal areas. Plant a tree today. The next generation depends on it.
Act now. Rally. Rethink. Respond. This message is brought to you by the OECS Secretariat with funded assistance from the United States Agency for International Development.